Hey y'all, it's Sarah, and I have been asked if I could show you my cookies. So this is the spread that I did for the week of Valentine's, and I'm going to tell you, I tried to record it at the time, and um, I ran into some struggles. I ran into some video production struggles and didn't get a video for this. So I thought I would break it down and just do the components and at least show you how to do the little cookies. And they're super simple, and you're going to look at it and be like, oh my gosh, that was super simple and super cute. I think it's super cute. So this is kind of the example. And I'm not going to show every single cookie topping that you could possibly do, but I will give you kind of a general idea of how I did this and did it super easy. So I'm going to put this to the side, and I'm doing it on paper because obviously I already did my planner spread. But I'm doing mine on label paper, just so you know, so that I can cut these out and have my own stickers of my own stuff. So this is actually sticker paper. So I figured if I was going to show them, I might as well have something to show for it at the end. Now I will have some stickers like this that I can just throw in. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to tell you what all I use. You don't have to use the same supplies as me. I get asked about markers. You will probably see me grab several different markers because I just happen to grab colors. I'm not partial to any particular one, and that spread was done with a majority of knockoffs of Crayola Super Tips and a couple of Crayola Super Tips themselves. So whatever marker you want to pick that works in your planner so far. I'm also using a stencil, and you don't even have to use the same stencil. If you are somebody that can draw an even heart in both directions on your own, you're already one step ahead of the rest of us. But these are just some examples. These are all Dollar Tree stencils, and you can see each one has hearts. I'm going with this one. And these two are actually pretty similar. Don't overlook some of the alpha stencils because they do often have a few other symbols at the bottom of them. But I'm using this one. This one's actually pretty close, just so you know, they're pretty close in size if you happen to have one of these. Or take a piece of cardstock, do the old school way, fold it in half, cut out an even heart, and trace around that. Anything like that, just to stay consistent. That's what I'm using it for. And you can see I'm going to finish out my little grid of cookies. I want to try to get closer. That is where I fell into problems with the video, is that I got closer. It just was not focused on the right things. So me and technical problems with video stuff, I'm sorry. Let's get in a little bit closer so that you can see how easy these really come together. Most of you know by now that my drawing pen of choice is this Dollar Tree Clip Click ballpoint pen. They come in an 8-pack. This is just kind of one of my preferences. I don't typically, I don't sketch a lot of things out. I just roll with it and hope for the best. And we've kind of seen, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm going to go ahead and go in with a pen, mainly so it's easier for you guys to see. You start with a pencil if you feel like you need to. But these first lines, we're going to just kind of get them in there, and then we're going to outline them again in kind of this little jaggedy outline. So when you go in to do the tracing of your stencil part, right now you don't have to get really dark, deep lines. And I'm literally just kind of lightly, I'm barely putting any pressure. My pen is working fine. This is just me trying to make sure that I don't get my lines super heavy. Now, you can do one of two things from this point. I kind of free-handed mine out with my marker to get that dimension, that kind of extra side to my cookie. But you can absolutely do it right now at this stage with your stencil. You can see that's what I've got sketched out so far. And I'm sliding this thing over, and here's the best way I can tell you that I found to do this, to make it a little easier. Right down here at the bottom of my heart, I just came and did my little notch across so I would kind of remember how thick I wanted this edge. And I did it straight across, like that. When you bring your stencil up, you can align it down to the end of your line, over to your heart. We're going to start right up here. And now we have a more dimensional little heart. We're going to run through that 2 more times, because I'll try to show you a couple of variations decor wise that I did on these, a couple color variations. I'm focusing, I've got to figure out how to be able to share the details and have it focus where it's supposed to. So I'm doing the same thing here. I'm giving it. Now, when I did mine, I'm going to be honest with you, I just used the width of the marker and came down and did this all at once. I didn't even use my pen at first. I started out with straight in with my marker and used my marker to trace my stencil. But at this point, I need to clean this stencil. I didn't figure that was the best idea. And if you need to clean your stencils, by the way, a little household rubbing alcohol is a super simple way with a little Q-tip or a wipe, and just come in and clean them off that way. So same thing with all of them. I think I'm going to start breaking up my videos to individual doodles, maybe do it like this, and then do a collective video of the extras that I'll put on my planner, because I do try to fit a lot in, and it's a lot of things to cover sometimes. So here's kind of where I stand. Now, right here, we'll be able to clean that up some. So let's go ahead and start pulling out markers and things like that. So I'm going to try to throw some marker color ideas out here and at least give you an idea about putting colors together. And I'm certainly no pro at this, because I've made it very clear I don't consider myself an artist in that way. I'm just learning as I go and trying to share how I learn things in a non-artist way. So anything maybe in this range, and if you've got brush markers, I'm going to show you what range these are. So anything along those numbers should work for this. If you are a Crayola marker person and you use the super tips, it drives me nuts when markers aren't labeled, but here you go, something in this range. I'm also using these colors. Oops, no, this color, which you can see, this is the same one I used in my planner, just a classic red, chunky kid style marker. I'm also using, I do like that Michael's version of the super tips, like this is their version. I think it comes in a 50 count. Theirs are labeled, so if you're using those, it's pale pink. And I gotta tell you, there's a lot of bang in that collection. I think it's somewhere around $8.99 for the 50 count collection. And usually there's coupons and rewards and stuff. And I got my entire collection for like $3 and some change for the whole collection. They're all labeled. There's a good variety. I've had pretty good luck so far using these. So if you're jumping in and wanting to play with some markers, might be a really economical choice, but I'm not partial to anybody. I like all markers. So these are kind of some of the colors that I'm using. And it's fairly simple from this stage. And hopefully you can see these colors. So I came in at this stage and kind of outlined. Let's see if I can get it to focus here. Focus, fella, focus. I kind of outlined maybe, and I have to spin, guys, because I've got some arm disabilities. Can you see that? I'm just giving myself almost a border around this edge of the cookie. And if you're using a highlighter, which you absolutely could use, I've got some highlighters in this color range. If you're using a highlighter with one of these chisel tips, it almost gives you the width automatically and you don't even really have to think about it. And I put a little color around the edge. Now, there are some things that I want to point out about the way that I color. First of all, I'm learning. And I have learned that we've got to color in our Happy Planner pages a little bit different. I've also learned that most of my work tends to come out looking like watercolors, even though I'm typically using random markers, highlighters, or something else. And it has a lot to do with the way that I color things in. So I will try to describe that. Oh my goodness, so sorry. So I'll try to describe that to the best of my abilities. When I color, I don't always stay in the line. It's become pretty glaringly obvious. Also, there's white spaces sometimes. I try to do my best, and obviously I try to do a neat job. But there's always going to be a little bit of variation in the pressure that my hands naturally put on that marker. There's, if you notice here, and I'm pointing these things out, I didn't come all the way up to that line. I'm going to leave it. Where else might that show? So here, as I tried to come across up here, I didn't necessarily hit all the way up, and there's a lot of white space there in between my outline. I'll leave a lot of that instead of going back in and trying to touch that up. I leave a lot of that there naturally. And typically where those weird places are, like the curves at this upper edge, are places that you would almost want to put a highlight. So I leave a lot of those little mistakes in there. And that's what I'm trying to teach, is that most of my work is big giant mistakes. So I started there. I've got the outline inside of my little cookies. Now I'm going to let that dry for a second. I'm still going to use the same rules. Even though I'm not doing it on Happy Planner paper, I'm still going by the same rules that apply to trying to work with Happy Planner paper and not bleed through. So I'm going to let those dry. Uh-oh, I missed the whole section here as I was talking. Now, none of those are filled in great. You can see that my pressure changed in some spots. That's kind of where I've been using my guidance for shading and shadowing and adding those extra details. I'm using my deficits and learning how to make them look intentional. So I have different pressure points there, obviously, as I came around those curves. I don't necessarily, when I hit these curves up here, I didn't necessarily hit my wrist the correct way, and you can see my ink is applied slightly different around these. Don't worry about it. You're going to see the same thing as I come in here. I think I'll use the bright red to start with. So we've pretty much now, after outlining, it gave us this center portion to kind of follow as a guidance. So we didn't need another smaller heart inside of there. We're using that inner outline guidance. went with this motion to apply mine because it almost made me feel like an icing motion or a frosting motion. A couple things that I want to point out here, a couple of mistakes. These are where I learned things. So here, I'm pointing out the mistakes because this is where you learn from things. Right there, that edge and that curve, not super great. Don't worry, the outline stage will help that. Here, I could have done a better job. I would give this time on my Happy Planner paper and maybe come in here and swipe down this edge. I'm going to do that anyway at some point in order to shade or highlight here, so don't sweat it yet. I'm going to move on to the next one the way I would in a Happy Planner because red certainly needs a little time to dry before I go adding another layer of red. So let's go on and move to this next one. This one's the easiest one that I can show you how to do because I'm going to do it as a white cookie, which means I don't even have to color in the inside. I'm going to go ahead and start right around here because I feel like I didn't want to come around and end up with a point, too sharp of a point right there. I feel like it would be a softer edge. So I started there. And I am barely dragging this ballpoint pen. So it is going to lift some because I'm barely dragging it. It's going to leave some faint lines. And obviously I'm not using super straight lines. Same thing as I come around, I'm just dragging that pen along. That some ink is applying. I don't know if I'm allowed to just quote the man. But looking back at listening to Bob Ross when I was a kid and not really doing art, not really understanding any of what he was saying, just happily watching him, he used to talk about making happy mistakes. All of everything I do now is happy mistakes because I don't have the control that I really wish I had in my hands, but I also don't have the skills. So I'm learning from happy mistakes. Once I've done the outline there, I can go ahead and do this entire outline. And this is the reason why I didn't want to go super dark with this ink, because I want kind of this unsteady line, this unsteady hand around the outer edge, but I did put more pressure so I didn't get the kind of the skips and things like that. It was a little darker and bolder, and you can you see how well the ink from these pens really can do? I'm very shy. I don't like writing with these pens at all, but I do like drawing with them. So I'm going to come around here with more pressure. And you can see my line is a little shaky. Now, right here where your connection point is, if you've got some little dips where you connected, like right there, or the little dip right there, when you do your outline, if you come all the way across around this most outer edge first, it helps you clean that up a little bit. I'm doing this from such a weird angle that it's helping make my lines even more crooked. So right here, now this certainly looks a lot better where that connection point from the edge of your heart was. So we got something that's starting to look like a 3D cookie. My next step was, and I didn't even have to add these. You still get the dimension without it. I just did. Just the more detail that you add, I feel like the more it feels like you're an artist when you're really not. So I just came across with a couple of lines clustered down that edge. Maybe at the bottom. Maybe up here, if you still couldn't clean up your little connection from your outer edge to right there, you might could come in and throw a few lines up there to help that connection point look a little more even. So this stage, we're starting to see some things. I felt like this white one was the easiest one to show some details on. I'm going to come down here, start with a few dots, take a little crazy. If I get some little dashes or whatever as I'm dotting on there, dotting this texture on there, that's completely fine with me. Like, don't panic too much that you're not getting perfect little even dottedness down there. At least on this one, I feel like it helped with the texture of the cookie. So I did along the bottom, maybe at all these edge points, like this here, this one here, along this bottom section, and I just threw some random ones throughout. You can take that as far as you want to, or as easy as you want to. Now that I've got that part done, let's go into, let's do some sprinkles. So I'm using these two colors for my sprinkles, this pale pink and classic red. And these make it really simple because they just go on like a sprinkle. It's got a nice fat thick sprinkle. And I'll do the same thing with a little of the pink. So you could leave those sprinkles like that, but I typically, on my sprinkles, I like to give my sprinkles a little dimension, like they're actually sitting there. In order to do that, I look at the sprinkles as trying to figure out which edge of the sprinkle is going to be the bottom. I don't know how that perspective really works, but that's kind of my guide. Which one looks like it's closest to the bottom of, facing the bottom of your cookie. So somewhere on that sprinkle, I'll come down and do like some letter J's or backward letter J's. So that looked like the bottom of that sprinkle. That kind of looks like the bottom of that sprinkle. And I'm not trying to do these lines maybe as heavy as my outline lines. I'm not putting nearly as much pressure on that ball point. So now I have some sprinkles that kind of look like they're popping off the page. You can take that even a step further. If you are white pen obsessed like I am, because I love my white pens, my white gel pens, I might even, since these darker colors will show it a little bit, I might come in and put like maybe the tiniest a little line or dash there on the opposite side of wherever I put the black line. So that makes it kind of the top. And now I've got little shiny sprinkles. But you don't have to. You don't necessarily have to. That one doesn't have any. That one's got some like square sprinkles. This one doesn't have any, but I want to show plenty of tips and tricks while I'm showing things. The most of the decorating part for this little cookie is done. Now, you can do this a couple ways. Because I tell you with our happy planners, the way that I move around all ADHD like is to allow the draw time in between. And that's why I'm able to put so much color on my pages. So I've done skipped all around. And you can do a couple of things. You can either have several colors in a row to put darker and lighter spots into your work. Or if you give it plenty of time to dry, we can layer these markers and they'll get darker as you go. So I could come back in here. I'll probably throw a couple other colors in here, but I want to show that you don't necessarily have to. I keep telling y'all I don't know the rules for shadows and lights and all of those things. I guess at it usually. It's pretty much a guessing game. But I want to point out a few things. Typically, I look at the bottom of things. Bottom of things are lower, it's usually darker. I look at the corner of things. This is a rounded out cookie, but it does kind of have a corner right here. There was no set rules in this. One of the things that I did do for this cookie for a little dimension is I added maybe a darker color along whatever the opposite edge of where I put the side of my cookie. So this dimensional side, I put one line around the icing or the frosting part of the way down the other side. And that just kind of helps create the idea that it's leaning that way. So you can see now there's already more color on this. I mix between like a peachy color and this yellowy ivory color to get a kind of cookie tone, because I couldn't make up my mind which cookie tone I liked. So I mixed a couple of colors. But in a general sense, if you wanted a very simple cookie close to what I did, this is really all you had to do. I might even add a little bit up there, maybe a little bit down this section. If you notice, I did not come all the way up to this line when I colored. Not originally, or when I outlined it, maybe I didn't outline it close enough. Either which way, I'm leaving it. Now it looks like there's a lighter place on there. Is it in the right place? Maybe, maybe not, but I'm leaving it. So let's go back over to this red one. As I was saying, you don't have to have every single color in a scheme for any of this to work, for any of what I showed to work. You don't have to, because of the way we're letting it dry, because of the way we're layering the colors. Really, you don't have to have anything more than your one color. So I'm going back to this classic red. On the frosted ones, I started somewhere about here, and I swooped around. So now that edge is certainly much cleaner. This other edge, still a little jaggedy, but you'll see that'll be fine once I do the outline on this. Now this cookie starts to look like it's got a little shadow here, like the icing's a little dimensional and plump, maybe, or the frosting, or I guess you ice cookies. So while this section now is being allowed to dry, because I will definitely need the red to be dry in order to use my white pens over it, because if not, they will turn pink. It will bleed through and it'll turn pink. I'm going to come in with that same jaggedy concept of pulling things across here. Very lightly, not putting near the pressure. Now you see that little bit of funky spot, no longer a problem. And both sides. Here's another little cheat you can take to give a little more dimension. I might come back in and darken this part of this line just barely. Same thing with my red one, just this side. And not really anything else. Didn't do much, just darken that line just a hair. So we're going to do our same raggedy, jaggedy outline. Any of the things I share, just know that it does not come with a super steady hand. So with a little practice, I feel like anybody can do any of these things. This one also has a good little spot of white space right there, and I'm leaving it as well. Might come in and do my little lines here. Definitely want to get in some of these things. In a few random places. You take that as far as you want to, but you can see it's almost just basically stabbing your pen down onto your page. So let's go ahead and jump on this one. I feel like I have to do at least one pink one. I'm definitely a pink kind of girl. Remember, I'm going to give that a little bit of time, come back in and do that same swoop around that bottom little edge of that heart. But I can go ahead and do my outlines and stuff. The other thing about these pens is they, pretty much most of the markers that I've played with them with, you can color over them with marker and they don't bleed. So I can do all my details and then turn around and color right over them, and it's fine. Swoop around here. Throw our little lines in. Throw some of our dots in, some of our texture. And I think we're good on that. I can go ahead and, I should be able to go ahead on the pink. It's a little lighter. I should be able to come around. Same way I started up here. And just swoop to that bottom. So now that line's cleaned up. Let's go in and get our frosting outlined. I might add my darker line there as I go. I typically do something like that afterwards because I'll forget to stop and change back my pressure. There we go. Now we have the start of a pink cookie. I can come back in now and start adding my extra color to my red one around the edges like we did here. So around this side edge, maybe down here. And honestly, I'm going to do it in a couple different spaces this time. Let's just do it all the way up here. Like, you don't have to do them exactly like I'm saying. You just want to put a little color in some different spots. And it tricks the eye into thinking that there's a lot of detail there. Same on this one while I have the marker out. And you know what? I think I grabbed the other marker. So right around this edge a little. Maybe up there. Maybe a little down there. Maybe just right along that cookie. Even right there. I'm just throwing a few specks of other color into that without being too particular about the rules of art. Now you can kind of see they're really starting to show a little bit of depth. I guess if I used the wrong color on there, I need to add some here. So just all over, throw a little color on there. It starts to blur together like watercolor. Now that my red one should have a little bit of, I still may risk turning it pink, but it's had a little bit of time. I can come in with a white pen, or other gel pens will typically, I've got a pretty good collection of, I think a lot of us have a pretty good collection of gel pens. However, gel pens tend to sit a little more on the surface for us than maybe the ink that's in these markers, which is why you can get it to sit on top of that marker color. So you could come in here if you have some quality gel pens, and you could get pink sprinkles or blue sprinkles or yellow sprinkles if you've got some good pigmented ones. And I still may have done it too soon. I can see where they're already trying to soak down in there because the ink is still a little damp. But you can pretty much throw whatever color sprinkles on there with some gel pens over the top of your marker. At this stage, you could pretty much call these complete. Other than just sitting and decorating them, you've got a pretty good start to a cookie that made you look like you tried to do some art. And I'm just taking my same gel pen and doing a couple lines across here. One of the ways that I'm learning a lot is just hands-on experience. I'm learning that to get the ink to do its best out of a gel pen, we tend to put too much pressure. If you lighten your pressure, like if you've got gel pens that you know should be working, but they're skipping, part of that could have nothing to do with the gel pen. It could be the level of pressure that you're putting on your gel pen. So I go really slow when I'm using my white one because I'm consciously trying to put the least amount of pressure on it to get that white to flow out really, really well. But now you can kind of see, let's see what color this ended up being. Just out of curiosity. Oh, it's a nice little tan beigey color. Look, this is a whole different color that I'm throwing on here. And not even in any rhyme or reason of a place, just to see what this color looked like. Because I didn't use this one when I did my cookies, but I did know that it was somewhere close within that color scheme. So there we go. Now our cookies look kind of plump with frosting. And they've got a little dimension. They've got a little shape to them. It looks like we did something. It looks like we maybe somewhere in there had a little bit of artistic skills to us. And mostly for me, I'm learning it's about the detail. Yes, I use a stencil for these, but the details were what was important to kind of throw in there to make it into something other than just a little heart stencil. Those are the things that I want to share. Those are the things that I get excited every time I discover new ways to add details or new techniques that work for someone like me who is not just a natural born artist and can whip stuff out. My youngest son is a natural born artist, and I can watch him put out artwork for the human body form in literally 2 minutes flat. I'm not that person. I have to find shortcuts, or I have to find ways to feel that way. I hope I can project some of those to you guys in a way where you can build a little more confidence, where we don't have to be natural born artists to do cute things. Because let's look back and see. I popped back so you can see all of these together. I find these to be super cute. Did they take a lot of work per little cookie? No, not really. Once I came down with a process that worked for me to kind of get some cuteness out of it. I absolutely find them adorable, which is why I did them on this sticker paper so that I could have them as stickers for later. And as many times as I failed on getting the video done for this spread, I am actually happy with this spread. It is a little busy. I was able to make it a little busy. It was there's not a lot coming in that week, so I could make it visually busy. I have some things that still need to be added from my personal journal that I just didn't want publicly viewed. So I still have some things to go in and add later, but that was pretty simple, I think. I absolutely think the results could be adorable. And you could do this for every single holiday if you wanted to. Totally do it next month for green. Even in the heart shapes, it would be adorable. And I am considering doing this because this would just make the cutest little image in a frame. If you're a Ray Dunn person or you are a tier tray person, you could do a set of these every month for your shelves and your coffee bar or something like that, just to fit every holiday. And I think it would be adorable. That in a little frame would be cute as can be on a coffee bar, especially if you changed them out every month. So there's a few ideas. Super simple. I hope you enjoyed it. I love hanging out and doing these things because I'm learning and I'm super excited about it. And I get easily distracted because I am learning and I get excited about it and I have to move all over the place for the drying time to work to get this much ink onto something. But I want to show you guys. By the way, that super cute thing came from Dollar General. I don't know if you see. That's super cute. It was a 2-pack. So all that color, and especially bold reds and things like that, because I get that often. How is the bleed through? Now you saw I used kids' chunky markers. I used whatever markers I had close to me that happened to be close to the colors that I thought I might want to use. And it really is more about teaching the process that I want to share. If you can take your time and bounce around, do this little icon, move to that little icon, bounce back again, you can almost just color all over these pages. I'm getting ready to share a Mardi Gras one, which we all know is bold and colorful and extra. And hopefully that one will show that you can pretty much do a whole lot of color on a page and still be safe as long as you're understanding how the paper and your markers are working. That's all I got for you. I am about to dive into a whole nother set of doodles. I just wanted to whip this one out because I told somebody I would do it for them. So if you're the only somebody that was looking for the video for the cookies, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope maybe you can draw your own cute little cookies, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, y'all.